Hey there, you're watching Wildflower Video Tips. I'm Lindsay Moe, and today I'm going to take you through an introduction to Adobe Premiere Pro. If you're just getting started with video editing, you might open up Premiere Pro for the first time and feel super overwhelmed. I'm going to take you on a little tour through the workspace, show you where everything is, and hopefully help you feel more comfortable working there. Whether you're just getting started or maybe you've been editing for a while and you haven't taken the time to really figure out where everything is, I think this is going to be really helpful for you. Before we get started, I would love to have you hit subscribe right below this video. That helps make sure you never miss a video from me. I'm actually going to be taking a couple weeks off here from sharing new videos as I help get my kids settled into school. If you're a parent right now, I'm sure you understand how complicated that is. But I would love to have you join our Facebook group to keep the conversation going over there. And definitely let me know if there are any topics you want me to cover when I come back. Other than that, let's dive in. When you open up Premiere Pro, this is the window you will see, and it gives you the option to open a recent project. You can come over here and browse for a project, or you can start a new project. We are going to start a new project, and we will call this example project. We don't need to worry too much about this other stuff right now. We're just going to click OK and get into it. If your window looks different than mine when you open it up, it might be because you are in a different workspace. You can see up here at the top, we have several different workspaces that we can work in. And I like to start out in the editing workspace. If you don't see these or you just don't know how to get to them, you can always go up to Window, Workspaces, and select the one that you want. I'm going to take you on a little tour of all these different panels, and we'll start down here in the bottom left, which is the Project panel. You can see it has the title of our project in it, and there are a few other options for things to use in here. I pretty much just use the actual project and the effects panel down here. And you can easily get to them by clicking or choosing this little caret menu and selecting the one that you want. Otherwise, I really like quick keys, so I will use Shift-1 to jump to the project and Shift-7 to jump to effects. Now, in here is where we're going to organize all of the assets that we're going to use in our video. So things like footage, music, voiceovers, graphics. I have another video all about how to use bins, which if you go down here, you can see you have the option to add a new bin. I really like using bins to keep my projects organized. I think they're great, so I definitely recommend you go and check that out. So let's start a new bin called footage. And to import, we can either click on the bin and go to File, Import, or I like quick keys and I'm on a Mac, so I'm going to press Command-I. Now you can see my video footage is in my footage bin, and if I double click on it, it opens up in the source monitor, which is the upper left here. Here is where we're going to do some rough editing and select what we want to include in our sequence. To do that, we will just scrub through, or I like to use the J, K, and L keys on the keyboard to quickly shuttle through. If you press L, it will start to play, and the more times you press it, the faster it will go. K stops it, and J works the same way in reverse. To set an in and out point, I am also using the keyboard. I like to use I to set an in point and O to set an out point. You could also use these controls down here. You can see they give you the option to mark in and mark out. And you have several other options down here, but for our purposes today, we're just going to use in and out. And then I like to drag just the video over. Since it's a recipe video, I am not including the audio from this. And we can just drag it down into our timeline. That created a sequence for us, which you can see over here in the project panel. And I recommend you go in and change that title to match the title of your video. In this case, I'm calling it example project to match the title of my project, but you would want it to match probably the recipe you're working on. In this case, it is a banana mug cake. One thing that I like to do is make sure that this playhead is at the end of the clips, and you can do that just by coming out here and pressing the up arrow, and it jumps right there. And then you can keep going, choosing more clips. The other option for dropping them into your timeline, as long as you have it at the end of the clips, is to just press the period key on the keyboard, and that drops it in. That keeps it very quick to keep shuttling through and editing. And you can also grab and drag it if you want to shuttle through even faster. Now over here on the right, we have our program monitor, which is going to show us what is happening down here in the timeline. You probably won't need to do too much in here other than just view what's in your timeline. But one thing I do want to point out that can be helpful is this export frame option, which allows you to export whatever frame you happen to be on. This is great if you are using your video to create process shots. As I mentioned, down here is your timeline, and here you're going to see whatever sequence you have opened up. Over here in the project panel, I just closed this little caret to hide all of our footage, and you can see our sequence here. If we had another sequence, let's go to New Item, and we will choose a new sequence. We could also open that sequence at the same time. This is great if you are working on similar projects or you want to pull in some assets from another sequence. And you can see in here that we have video tracks on top and audio tracks on the bottom. These can be expanded, and it allows you to see the video from the clip that you are in. You can also expand these workspaces if you don't have enough room or you just want to adjust for a moment to see better. We also have audio tracks, and if for some reason you are not seeing a video or hearing any audio like you think you should be, just make sure that you have not toggled these off. Down here on the audio, it mutes the track, and up here it hides the video. So make sure that you have not selected by accident any of those if you're not seeing what you think you should. Let's pull in some audio so we can see what we're working with here. And you can see when I expand the timeline, it lets me see the waveform better. And I get this white line in here. I have another video all about how to adjust your audio in your videos, so if you want to know more about how to play around with this, definitely go and watch that. I prefer to do my editing with these collapsed. I find it distracting to be able to see the video in the timeline. It does have its time and place and purpose, but just for basic editing, I like to have a nice clean workspace. To the left of the timeline down here, we have a little menu that gives us a few more editing options. Most of the time you will be in the selection tool, but it's also important to know about the razor tool, which lets you cut anywhere along your sequence. I'm going to go ahead and cut this music off right here and switch back to the selection tool. Again, I'm using quick keys, so I'm just pressing V to jump to the selection tool, and I can click and delete the rest of that music. Let's pull in something with attached audio. Studio lights up directly across from where I'm standing. This is just some footage from another one of my videos. And if I want to pull in the video and the audio, I will just click in here and drag it down. You can do, again, if you have your playhead where you want it to be, you could still use the period to drop it in. But I just wanted to show you that if you have audio and video linked, you can move between these tracks individually in that case. Once you get a few things in your timeline, you might want to start using some effects or changing the color. To get to the color panel, we can just click up here on this workspace and it will jump us to color. And then we have some options over here for basic correction, creative, curves, color wheels, HSL secondary, and vignette. I, again, have more videos, more detailed about how to use some of these features if you want more information on that, but I just wanted to show you how to get there. And over here, we use Lumetri scopes to get a better idea of what's happening in our video, but you still have access to the effects controls and the source monitor. To get to the effects, we are going to click on the effects workspace. We could also just click on it over here in the source monitor, but I like this panel. I find it really easy to use. Over here, just like we were doing down here, we could do the same thing and search for any effects that we might want to use. I am most often using video transitions and cross dissolves, and you can just drag those onto your timeline. And you can see this one is between the clips, but you can also move it over to affect just one clip. And if we want to adjust the length on that, just double click, and here you're selecting how many seconds and frames you want to use. Now, let's say I want to rotate this footage. I can do that over here under rotation, or I can change the scale, the position, all sorts of options here for adding effects to your video. If you're having trouble with either the color or the effects not applying to your video, make sure you have clicked on the clip that you want to change. If you are not clicked on it, you won't have the option to affect it, no matter where the playhead is. The other thing we want to look at is the audio panel. And here, there are a lot of things that we just won't need to use for recipe videos, most likely. The most common thing that I use is adjusting these sliders to change the overall decibel level of music I'm using in my videos. I find that most music you get online that you can use in videos is set pretty high. So to avoid really blasting people in the face with it, I just turn it down a little bit. We can also head over to the graphics workspace, where we have the option to work with essential graphics. There are a few templates set up that you might want to use, but you can also just click on this type tool and click in your video and add titles. You have over here all the options you would want to center or change the position, size, opacity, text, font, and you can add fill, shadow, background, and stroke to your text as well. I actually prefer to use legacy titles for my recipe videos, and you can check out my other videos on titles to see why, but if you wanted to add legacy titles, you would just go to File, New, Legacy Title, and give it a name. Let's say flower. And here you're essentially doing the same thing. You can choose from several preset styles, or again, just click on the type tool, click and add, then highlight it and make any adjustments you might want to make. I always end up back in the editing panel. And let's imagine that our video is done. We have completed everything we want to do. So we are just going to export our sequence. And to do that, I come out here to the right, press up arrow, left arrow, and O to set my out point. And you can see if you zoom in, that sets the out right at the very end, and you don't get any black space beyond your video. Now to export, come over here to the project panel and just choose whichever sequence you want to export. In this case, it is example project. Again, I'm using quick keys, so I will just click on the sequence and press Command M. We don't need to worry too much about what's here. Just make sure that your video settings are the same as your sequence and that you want them to be as you export. And I always export my videos through Media Encoder to make sure they're the right file size, so I would add them to the queue, but you could just export directly from Premiere Pro. That's it. I really hope you found this helpful and you're feeling more confident in diving into Premiere Pro. I have a ton of other videos here on my channel that can really dive into each specific topic and area of video editing, so definitely check those out and let me know if you have any questions. I would love to have you join our Facebook group, which I have linked in the description box down below. And before you go, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and hit subscribe so you never miss another video. As I mentioned at the beginning, I'm going to be taking a couple weeks off, but I would love for you to let me know if there's any topic you want me to cover in the future when I come back. Other than that, thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you next time.